Your 9 to 5 doesn't pay you enough. The value of everything in life has gone up. Everything except for your salary. Previous generations saw less money go further. They could afford to have a comfortable life, making less money. They could take care of a family of 4 and 5, pay for a house, pay for holidays, and save for retirement, all in a single salary. What went wrong? Now, in today's video, let's take a look at the past, present, and future. The past being how good previous generations had it financially. The present being what went wrong and why our generation's been shafted so badly. And the future, what can we actually do to fix the situation the best that we can for ourselves? Sound good? Let's get into this. So let's look at the past. What are the circumstances that previous generations operated in that meant that they could live a comfortable financial life? Well, before I get into that, I just want to preface this and say that I understand that previous generations had their own separate political and social battles to fight. The Cold War, Vietnam, JFK, MLK, prejudices, equality laws that didn't exist. I get that. I'm not taking away from that. All I'm saying is that financially, the data shows that previous generations had it easier. So let's take a look at incomes to start with. Starting salaries back in the day could range between anything from 15 to 22k. Now, that doesn't tell us much, but when we look at what their salaries could actually afford, it starts to paint a much more beautiful picture for these guys. Let's look at the 4 financial walls that everyone has to cover, that being housing, bills, food, and transportation. Let's start with housing, the biggest expense for most people. The average house price back in 1970 all the way to 1980s was 4 times the annual salary. That means that on a 15 to 20k salary, you could comfortably afford a $40 to $50, $60,000 house. Is that not crazy? In this day and age, you're not going to find that. Listen, the other day I had a look online, and the only thing that you can afford for 50k in London is someone's run-down garage that they're selling. It's got holes in the roof, no front door. Well, I guess the only thing you can say is that it's open plan at least. And what about rent? Well, it was less than £200 a month, adjusted for inflation. To be fair, I should have said that beforehand. All these figures are adjusted for inflation. What about transportation? Well, the average new car cost between 10 to 15k, so about 1 time the annual salary back in the day. But now, new car prices can run you up 30, 40, 50k plus. And what about to fuel those cars? How much did it cost? This truly brought a tear to my eye when I saw this. It cost 8p per litre. 8p per litre of petrol. And for Americans, that's 35p per gallon. And add times that by 1.2 and you'll get the conversion like less than 50 cents per gallon. Is that not crazy? Oh my gosh. Petrol prices are through the roof. It's like £1.55 for diesel. Now, I can't imagine paying 8p back then. Food prices? This one's also a biggie. Currently, people's food prices can run all the way into the $400, $500 plus a month. Back then, you could feed a family of 4 or 5 comfortably on less than $100. Listen, bread was only 9p. Milk was 4.5p. Can you imagine? So for like 10, 20 quid, I could comfortably feed a whole family of 4 for that. Lord have mercy. And what about job security? Well, back then, the job market was far less competitive than it is today. I'll tell you that for free. And the economy was growing a lot faster as well. Businesses were investing in people, in processes, in machinery, and jobs were being created. Way more than there are now. And so what that means is that these baby boomers are now, 60 years later, in senior management and have no plans on retiring anytime soon, making it harder for Gen Z and subsequent generations to progress in the corporate space. Now, what about higher education? My gosh. I'm trying to stay calm, but I have my very strong opinions of this. So, back in the day, baby boomers, 1960s, 1970s, university was free. Can you imagine? Free university. And guess what? Even when the government started charging for university in the UK at least, it was only 1k, up to 1k a year, plus tuition. That means if you graduated, went to university during that time, the 1970s, 1960s, you could come out of university with no to little debt, be on a salary that could help you clear that debt immediately, and then build a life that was low cost. And if you played your cards right as a baby boomer or Gen X and leveraged all of the above financial tailwinds that you had behind you, you could have a fully paid off house by now, a fully funded emergency fund by now, a fully funded retirement account by now, adult children, so you're not paying for any extra miles, being senior management, and also benefit from the much better healthcare and technological advances that we have in 2026. That's not crazy. Like, it's hard to see why our generation doesn't feel hard done by when we are struggling to even rent and find jobs in this crazy, crazy economy and get told that, oh, we're too entitled. Oh, we're too soft. Nah, bro. Let's compare your cards to mine and we'll see who really had a handful of aces. More of the story here, life was cheaper back in the day. Now, let's look at what life is like today. Let's look at the current economic climate that 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds find themselves operating in today. Now, one of the biggest factors that contributes to why everything is so much more expensive today is inflation. Dun, 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 dun. Yes. Dun. So inflation simply means that prices increase, and it measures how much more expensive prices are today than they were a year ago for the same time period. Here's the crazy thing. From 1970 all the way to 2026, inflation has risen by over 1,200%. That's over 12 times. So something that cost 10 cents or 10p back in the day now costs £1.20 or $1.20. I don't know if I said that right for you Americans. Obviously, I understand that inflation is an average of the price increases of different goods and services. So not everything has risen by over 10 times. But what it does mean is that on average, younger generations are poorer than older generations in terms of real income. How did we get here? Well, a lot of global crises have contributed to this. But in the 1970s, one of the big things was the OPEC embargo, which caused a massive rise in oil prices. And as we're seeing today, again, with Israel, US, and Iran, increased oil prices lead to increased prices of everything. That coupled with the wage price spiral, which was that back in the day, in the 1970s, because of the increased inflation, trade unions had a much louder voice back in the day, and workers demanded higher wages in response to the higher inflation. These higher wages then meant that businesses had higher costs, and they passed these higher costs to the end consumer. And so it became a vicious cycle of increasing wages and increasing prices. This also contributed to a slowdown in the economy, and unemployment started to rise as a result. In response to this, governments and central banks loosened monetary policy. They started pumping money into the economy and lowering interest rates in hopes of creating more jobs and stemming the rising inflation. However, this rather fueled inflation. There's more money in the economy to put towards these higher prices, further pushing inflation up, and it's being spent on these more expensive goods. All right, enough of the history lesson. Let's look at incomes nowadays. Now, the starting salary is now at 33k in 2026. That's almost 2 times higher than what it was for baby boomers. However, we've just seen that inflation has risen by over 10 times on average. What does this income now buy you? Well, you're about twice as worse off because house prices have risen stupendously since then. Why? Okay, look, back then, the average house price was 4 times the annual salary. Can you guess what it is today? It's 8 to 10 times. My guy, on a 15 to 20k salary back in 1970, you could easily afford a 50 grand house. Now, your salary has doubled to 33k, but houses cost 260 to 280,000 pounds on average. How does that make sense? You basically want people to rent for the rest of their lives and own nothing. I've recently heard it said across the internet that that's what the people in power want. They want more control at the top, less control at the bottom, and people to own nothing and be happy. And let's turn our attention to job security. Well, that's gone through the toilet because we're seeing mass layoffs each and every day. Like companies like Amazon, Meta, Twitter, massive Fortune 500 companies are laying off employees left, right, and center. The pace of technology is increasing rapidly, and we're seeing AI disrupt every sector. So jobs that were secure a couple of years ago aren't so secure today. A few years ago, people would have told you, oh yeah, go to university and learn computer science. Like, that's a stable job that will be there forever. Now, with AI, you can vibe code. And we're seeing mass layoffs in tech as a result. And on top of that, to boot, there's so many more people graduating from university, fewer jobs being created. And then you have job advertising sites like LinkedIn posting ghost ads for jobs that don't exist, for companies that don't care about you. We're being gaslit by the establishment, by people who have already made it, the previous generations, and don't have to worry about trying to find a job. And again, let's turn our attention back to uni and the cost of higher education. Well, back in the day, you could go for free, leave with little to no debt, and get a good job. But now, if you went to university from 2012 in the UK at least, you took out loans of 9k a year plus maintenance to help with your accommodation fees, whilst being charged interest while you were learning, and ended up graduating with 40 to 50k worth of debt when starting salaries are only 33k. Does that make sense? On top of that, the content in those degrees isn't up to date. It's behind the change of pace of technology and modern working. So what you're learning might not even be relevant in the next 4 years as a result. You're getting meaningless degrees, massive amounts of debt, and our starting line is way behind what it should be as a result. What vexes me the most is that you will be paying these student loans until you're 50. Sack, I lied, because the government recently introduced plans to have student loans repayments continue until you're 60. So people have been scammed into lifelong taxes. And what vexes me even more is that student loans are sold to 17-year-olds that are leaving sixth form, leaving college in the UK, and most of them can't drive. You can't drink. You probably don't even know how taxes work yet, but yet you're able to get into tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And then the people that are selling you these loans tell you, oh, you don't worry, you won't even notice it. It will only come, you only start paying it after a certain amount, and you'll barely even see it in your paycheck. But it's there. Listen, the Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender. The interest being charged on these loans is growing faster than you are even making contributions each month to pay down these loans. That's evil. And what this means is that these headwinds that our generation is faced with makes retiring feel like a pipe dream at the end of the day. The state pension age keeps rising. It was 65 a few years ago. It's now risen to 67. And I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if it's 70 plus. The higher cost of living means that people are less able to save towards their retirement and retire with dignity. The same dignity that previous generations were able to do so. So you aren't crazy. Don't let the previous generations gaslight you into thinking that, oh, you're just soft, or you're just whining, or you're just complaining. No, life was cheaper back in the day. It was different, yes, but it was cheaper. And our generation has it so much harder from a financial perspective. Credit card debt is at its all-time highest in the US, and it's growing in the UK. Buy now, pay later is everywhere you can see. And our generation simply feels like they can't get ahead. So let's turn our attention to the future. What can we actually do to combat this crazy economic status that we have inherited as 20 to 30-year-olds? So we already know that the current state of the world isn't helpful for Gen Z financially, mentally, socially, any type of value. And the onus is on us to find a way of breaking out of these systems. These systems that are broken, they worked for the previous generations, but not for us. Well, one of the things that we can do is to educate ourselves. We have the most amount of information and tools available at our fingertips in the form of our phone and the internet. We need to use that to leverage the internet to learn valuable and interesting skills that set us apart in the marketplace if you want to go down the traditional career path, but also allow us to generate income of our own outside of a 9-to-5. The second thing is to build. So once we get those skills, we need to become entrepreneurial. Start your own side hustle, turn that into a main hustle, and diversify your income. So you're not just subordinate to an employer who might decide to fire you, let you go, or play hard HR until you decide to leave yourself. By doing this, you're able to spread the risk. you're able to build confidence in your ability to sustain yourself and your family with the skills that you've been able to develop, and you become more resilient to anything that the world might throw at you. Any downturns, any recessions, any global pandemics or financial crises, they don't hurt as much. And the third thing is that we need to be consistent. Time is the biggest thing that someone who's in their 20s and 30s has versus someone who's in the 60s and their 70s. Don't waste that time scrolling endlessly on TikTok and YouTube, Instagram, watching short form content that's just brain rot generated by AI. Don't waste that time chasing meaningless experiences with people that you don't even care about or like for status or approval. Just lock in and focus on you, on building a life that you love living today and for the rest of your life. I'm personally doing that because I'm personally invested. I'm doing all three. I've always wanted to do YouTube and now I am. I used to make excuses back in the day that, I need to focus on my education first and set myself up first with a stable job. And YouTube would take me away from that. I cared too much about what my friends and family and society would think. And that kept me from pursuing YouTube. But I'm here now and I'm not going to stop. I cut out a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad relationships in my life. And now I'm focusing on myself, my family, and my future. I refuse to go backwards. And I know that one day I'll be able to do this full time. And this channel is dedicated to sharing my journey along that way. I will be showing the numbers that this channel generates in revenue, the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship. And I hope that this can inspire someone else to take up their mantle and pursue a dream, a passion that they actually care about. You spend most of your life working and sleeping. So, hopefully you're already enjoying your sleep, but the majority of people aren't enjoying their work. So why can't we turn our work into something that we find fulfilling, something that we find enjoyable? I personally prefer freedom over finances. It sounds contradictory, but it's not. Time is money. Money is time. I don't need to be a millionaire in order to have a lifestyle that I actually enjoy. I don't need to be Mr. Beast in order to put food on the table, in order to travel, in order to retire. I know what my freedom number is, and I truly believe that YouTube can help me get there. I've seen so many people be able to change their life as a result of this, as a result of starting YouTube and growing a channel. So this is what I'm going to do. And if you relate to this content and you relate to me and you want to follow this journey and stick around and support the channel, then subscribe, drop a like and comment down below any other topics that you want to see me cover. There's a lot of things on my mind that I want to get off my chest. And I'll be covering more of them on future videos down the line. So that being said, hope you guys have a good one. And Silent Wins, signing out.